Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully, you still have some energy for one last panel. We're going to discuss today a very interesting topic. This is about, as I said, decreasing the level of trust on AI. This is what we call sovereign AI and confidential AI. And together with me, I'm George Passalis from Accenture. Together with me, I have the Minister, the Deputy Minister of Digital Governance, Mr. Kiranakis, the General Manager of Dell in Greece, Alex, and a colleague from Accenture, one of our R&D experts on confidential AI, Giuseppe. Thank you so much all for coming here today and discussing with the audience this topic. Maybe as an opening statement, I think we've heard today also from the Prime Minister and a lot of other presenters very innovative things that AI and Gen AI in general can do for us. But there is also, I think, a topic about that not all AI workloads are made equal, right? Some of them do require a higher level of trust. Maybe that's because they contain more sensitive data than others, or maybe they're about critical infrastructure. And with this in mind, we see in a lot of other countries and a lot of organizations focus more on doing this extra layer of security. So this is what we're going to demystify a bit today. But before we go there, maybe let me start with the Minister on the following question. Before we go there and discuss how to protect better our AI workloads, we need to figure out which are the ones that really deserve this higher level of trust. And part of that is answering the question which data are sensitive, how do we classify our data, and how do we put an order and different tiers on the data themselves. And we'd like to ask you about what are the government initiatives on that. We know there's some upcoming ones, and we'd like maybe to share with the audience how this works out.
All right, thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you to all the brave last ones who remained in the audience to listen to the very last panel in another AI conference for 2024. I very much believe in accountability, so I will begin my statement by saying that a couple of things that we promised last year in last year's Gen AI Summit, which was catching wildfires with AI, which was the ability of using generative AI to read in natural language contracts in the land registry. The other one was the tender for the Daedalus supercomputer, which will be one of the highest of the highest speed and most capable supercomputers in the European Union. All three of these promises were kept. And this year we can look behind and say with pride that compared to other EU nations, we made some bold moves to prove that Greece can be at the forefront of widespread adoption of this amazing technology. Because it's, sometimes we can be driven away talking all the time about theory and what this great technology can do in the future. But it's very critical for governments to be early adopters of this technology to understand what actually works and what doesn't, in order to draw conclusions and move with more confidence to the next steps. So now that we know what kind of projects we can really create with AI at a government level, it's crucial for us, as you said, to protect citizens' data. So there's a crucial step between data classification and AI-ready data sets for public use, for open use, and all the projects that we want to design. And it's called anonymization. So in some critical projects like health data, or helping the justice system become more effective, these are two strategic priorities for the Greek government, and they they have to do a lot about our efficiency overall and about minimizing costs, but also giving much better services. What lies in between, where EU nations do not have yet, at a very good level, the expertise that we need, is anonymization. So what we need actually is more algorithms and more systems and more certified companies that will be able to take a big data set, and be a trusted partner, anonymize it with certain methods, and then track if anonymization really works. Because this is the step that will really create trust and confidence between the public and the widespread use of AI technology.
Fantastic. So if we need to take something from this, is about increasing the level of trust, using anonymization on the data, and enabling even more AI use cases. Alex, let me switch to you. We already heard that the government has taken the first steps. But from your perspective, you're a general manager of one of the largest technology and infrastructure, AI infrastructure companies. What kind of investments do you see in the broader region? How others are moving in this space? Are they putting more centers, or data centers locally? Do they just rely on a generic cloud? How does it work, again, from your viewpoint?
So first of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure being on this panel. To continue what Deputy Minister just mentioned, first of all, I would like to mention that when we're talking about sovereign AI, we are talking about the type of artificial intelligence which systems are developed, controlled, managed within the country. So this is important to mention without having third party being involved. Okay, in that. So what we see at the moment is that this is gaining importance role in further economical development, in development across all industries. Okay, it's not something new, by the way. I'm just happy to say I like to see that this trend is on the top at the moment, and it's driving human progress on the other side. And by having said that, we see that some, let's say, on European Union level, if you look closer, we'll see some sovereign national AI projects, like supercomputer, moving forward. We talk more here about AI factories and the system which are focused on defense, healthcare, national critical infrastructure, national intelligence, intelligent information. Then we see military as well. Okay, sovereign AI responsible for developing systems, preventing breaches, and controlling the borders of not only the country but European Union as well. Culture, which is important. This is some of the things that I have also reached out even to Greek Church to discuss about that, on how Greek Church and one of the biggest Greek and each European country should look into their national treasury will protect, okay, the future and the national brand of Greeks. So we see there the history. We see open source as well. We see a federal system, not that much in Greece, but what is federal sovereign AI are around education. You can see in much bigger countries, like, for example, Germany, okay, this type of project happening. It's around sharing knowledge. It's about developing further knowledge and the economy as well. So there are some more which are, we don't need to go into details, sovereign AI projects that are on the list of European Union. In some countries are happening. We see in Western European countries, they're moving faster than us, okay? But in the end of the day, what matters to me is how we will use all these systems. So what's beyond? Okay, we can build national AI, but if this national AI is talking specifically now about the Greece, we don't need to invent the wheel, right? Okay, we have to look about our needs, where Greece wants to be, how Greece would like to be positioned on global map, okay, and then to pick up a couple of things and to focus over there. Do we need to talk about agriculture, smart agriculture? Do we need to talk about pharmaceutical industry, which AI is developing? This is not something new. I shared with you previously when we talk about, this is my personal craziness about bioengineering and in which direction this is going. This is also a type of sovereign AI. Does not need to be, of course, national. It can be also corporate. This is also corporate sovereign AI that's happening. So this is basically a very high-level overview of what's happening now, not only in Europe. Okay, and Europe is regulated by GDPR AI Act, what we know as well. We see the same in the United States. We see in China, they call it, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Next Generation China Plan for AI Development, something like this. So all over the globe.
Okay, Alex, thank you for this. What I would like to take from your answer is that it doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel everywhere, right? And also it makes a lot of sense to focus on what we think could be competitive advantages. And I think also in the previous discussion, the Prime Minister touched upon that. Now, Giuseppe, if I can go to you for a second. You are one of our top experts, R&D experts on the field of trusted AI and confidential AI. And you had, through your role in Accenture, the pleasure to see a lot of these initiatives mature in various countries. So can you help here the audience understand some examples of how others have really implemented that, what kind of approach they followed, and what are the different, maybe, let's say, design paradigms we have seen in this space?
Yeah, and before we talk about sovereign AI, I think we should really start from the concept of sovereign cloud, because this is where it all started, especially in Europe with the strong push of GDPR, right? So we've seen a lot of initiatives and a lot of countries who really made a regulatory matter out of sovereign cloud. And of course, this was mandated from the European Union and then cascaded to the individual countries. So we have the concept of sovereign cloud, which is all about making sure that the data stays in the boundary of the country and it doesn't leave the country and so on and so forth. But now with the push of AI and in particular generative AI, data is becoming even more important than in the past, right? And we don't just talk about the national boundaries and making sure that the data don't leave the country, but now we also need to make sure that what happens to the data within those sovereign clouds that we have eventually created is compliant with the regulation and also has an increased level of security given the level of compliance that we expect from the data that the organizations deal with on our behalf, especially from a GDPR standpoint. So with that said, what we are seeing in Europe is the big cloud infrastructure providers taking different strategies, from AWS, opening regional data centers, to Microsoft being very strong on public-private partnership to basically build new organizations in the respective countries to make sure that things like Microsoft Cloud for Sovereignty gets utilized and offered to other services. We see Oracle, Google, for example, in the UK with the Oracle Cloud and so on and so forth. So this is more from an infrastructure standpoint. If I have to talk about 3 examples that I saw around the world, definitely in Europe, one that really I think is a very good example is what Proximus, a telco, is doing in Belgium. Basically, they are partnering with Microsoft from a sovereign cloud standpoint, with Intel and with Thales, to make sure that the data stays sovereign in the country. With Intel, they start talking about using confidential computing, which we will get in a second. And with Thales, we really tend to increase the level of security that they do with the services that they are planning to offer to their customers. So in Europe, I would say Belgium, Proximus is a perfect example of how the sovereign AI is getting configured in order to offer services around AI and confidential AI in particular. Definitely there is another one in Indonesia where we as Accenture are involved with Indosat, yet another telco, and not by coincidence, I believe. This is a company that is basically working with us at Accenture to bring to scale our concept of AI refinery that has a number of components, including the switchboard that allows to use different models or select the model depending on the requirements. It has some sort of brain to bring together the data, which is the fuel for AI, in a consistent and a precise way to make sure that we alimент basically AI with the right data to get the right results. Basically, we are building with them this in a sovereign AI construct. Starting with financial services, which is a pillar for the Indonesian economy, and then this will scale to other industries. And then the last one I'm going to mention quickly here is what's happening in the Middle East, especially in the UAE, with Core 42 and G42, this joint investment together with Microsoft to basically build this regional data center in the Middle East that will allow basically the UAE to start offering very advanced services when it comes to confidential AI. And then the other thing is, as we just said, depending on the different countries, what we see is a very strong focus on the industries that are key for the countries. In Germany, we see a strong focus on automotive, healthcare, for example. In France, we see a very strong focus on government and defense. In the Middle East, this concept of smart cities and public safety is becoming more and more important.
Okay, so I think we see a trend or a pattern emerge that one element is keeping the data in the country, so data locality, so having more control of the data. I think second point is having a clear North Star, focusing on selected industries, not following like a shotgun approach. And I would say that the third one, it's very key, is to actually have the infrastructure, and especially with all this boom of AI demand, sometimes the infrastructure is not so easy to get by. I think going now back to the minister, we have heard also today, I heard also the Mr. Papastergiou and also the Prime Minister referenced the AI factory, right, which is one of the first initiatives that the government is pursuing, and that will put enough, I think, infrastructure with high performance chips, including GPUs, at the hands here of the country. Can you share more details about that? What the audience should take out of this? What should they expect to see in the coming months? I think it's still on the RFP phase, but it should complete soon, right?
Yes, Greece's proposal on the AI factory is based on the Daedalus supercomputer, which will consist of 60 petaflops. This is, for a country like Greece, is a huge amount of computational power, which will allow us building the AI factory proposal for an ecosystem of academics and businesses that will develop products that they could never scale before. For example, let's say a university together with a startup wanting to create a prediction model for a wildfire. A prediction model that will be based on a number of data sources like general climate information, weather information based on the date, a number of morphological data about the place of the wildfire, a number of sources that all combined would need a very large amount of computational power to be developed. And of course, if we don't want to be constantly hostages of the big of the tech giants' monopoly on computational power, just a small parenthesis. Both speakers spoke about the data centers that are being built here and everywhere. The main reason that the tech giants are building data centers all around the world is not because of storage, is not because of hosting application and services for the clients. It's because of the capability of computational power. By interconnecting all these data centers all around the world, they build a capacity that is unprecedented. And of course, as it was discussed before at the panel with the Prime Minister, it would need enormous amounts of energy to be fueled. Apologies for the small parenthesis. So products like this, like the one I mentioned, or products that will have to do with the army or policing or sensitive data of the justice system, or data on how to fight organized crime. Things that by nature cannot go outside a country. In some cases, they cannot go outside the European Union framework. The AI Factory proposal that Greece has submitted to the European Commission is based on these principles, and we're very optimistic that it will give the local community, the national community, the opportunities that till now they would have to travel all the way to Silicon Valley to experiment and scale the projects.
This is amazing, and I'm sure everyone is looking forward to see how this work out in real life. And I think it's important to remember that not all AI workloads are made equal, right? At different levels of sensitivity, different levels of trust required. Giuseppe, going back to you, and I don't want to make it too technical, but what we have seen in many cases combined with the concept of sovereign AI is a new emerging concept of confidential AI, and this has to do with increased encryption. And some of the audience are practitioners, so they know, they have heard about how you encrypt your data while in transit or at rest, but it seems that there are more you can do about that. So would you like maybe to share here with the audience how this
Yeah, with
like?
pleasure. I'll try to stick to the time. I could speak on this for hours, so I'll try to control myself. But so first, before talking about the data protection, when we design sovereign cloud type of solutions, normally we use this concept of landing zones, right? Depending on the sensitivity of the workloads that we are bringing to the cloud, we deploy those workloads in the right landing zone. They can be secure, they can be confidential, they can be super confidential. And behind this, there is infrastructure as a code that really gives you the ability to make sure that in that landing zone, you are compliant with certain policies. There is some certain security policies that are applied, application encryption, data encryption, and so on and so forth. Now, going to what's happening around confidential AI, those models need a lot of data when training them, when fine-tuning them, but also when inferencing, right? And the risk is that if those models come from third parties, we give away a lot of sensitive information that probably we should protect, especially in the context that we are discussing in this panel. Now, getting back to the original point made by the minister, anonymization is a great technique. But when we talk about anonymization, there is always this compromise between privacy and utility, right? If you make the data too anonymous, too private, then the risk is that you lose too much utility. And depending on the use cases that you are after, probably you are not as efficient as you should be. So anonymization is definitely a great technique, but maybe not the only one and not the silver bullet for all the use cases we have ahead of us. What we see, as George said, is this new concept of confidential computing, which is one of these new privacy-enhancing technologies that goes beyond memory data security at rest, that goes beyond data security in transit. Now we are talking about data security while in use. So with confidential computing, basically you can use this concept of trusted execution environments, which basically give you the ability to have some secure enclaves in the memory of those CPUs and GPUs, where the data stays encrypted, and this is processed while encrypted. Basically, you can now, without having to anonymize the data, bring your encrypted data into those secure enclaves, train your model on encrypted data, fine-tune on encrypted data, give a prompt which stays encrypted, and you get the result without having exposed your sensitive data to a model that runs in the clear. So this concept of confidential computing, again, requires some hardware, but now it's pretty common to find SGX, TDX, AMD, NVIDIA chips that support confidential computing. Really goes beyond the concept of security at rest and in transit. We talk about security in use. You can do this at the application level. You can do this at virtual machine level. You can have containers so that you can really orchestrate your applications in a very scalable and secure way. And we also go beyond that, because now that you have confidential computing, you have an infrastructure that is secure, it's all encrypted, you don't have to anonymize the data, you can deal with the data while they are encrypted. Then what gives this confidence is the concept of attestation. Basically, before moving the data to these secure spaces, you want to attest the environment to make sure that you have a certificate back that gives you the guarantees that that place is really secure and all the security protocols are in place with all the security patches and so on and so forth. So the concept of attestation, which brings me to the very quick other point I want to make, which is now we have a sovereign cloud where the data stays in the cloud, in the country. We can protect the data by anonymization or while in use using confidential computing. Now, if we talk about responsible AI, integrity of those pipelines, we can also talk about verifiable computing. Because nowadays, when we bring data to the cloud and we start fine-tuning those models, who's going to give us the guarantees that we have integrity with the data sets? Who's going to give us the guarantee that the model is not tampered with while being trained and so on? So now, building on what I just said, you can also build pipelines that are verifiable in this trusted hardware. Basically, on your pipeline, from data preparation to model creation, you can start generating proofs at each point in your pipeline to basically guarantee the integrity of the data sets and the models that you have. So that from a cyber standpoint, if in a certain moment you realize that your data set has been compromised, you can raise a flag. And basically what I'm trying to build here is the story of the sovereign construct that gets confidential to keep the data protected while in use, and then also gives you the ability to do what we call verifiable AI to make sure that your data and model are protected from an integrity standpoint while you are using your data sets.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Just to quickly add here that I think from a cybersecurity perspective, the new generation of LLMs adds another level of headache because if there's a compromised LLM, it is virtually impossible to detect it, let's say, a priori, and at any point it would expose its weakness with the right prompt. And there are very interesting scientific papers that showcase how this could work out. So having extra layers of security makes sense.
But with these solutions, what you can do now is, even if you realize that the model was compromised a posteriori,
yes,
now with the data lineage and with the cryptographic proofs, you can really go back and see what happened to that model and what kind of interactions you had with that model so that you can take your corrections if possible.
Perfect. Alex, question to you. What we have just discussed showcase that there are multiple parallel options, right? You have data anonymization, you have the option to keep your data locally, you have the option now to do more encryption, which means that what we're going to end up most likely with is architectures that look very hybrid, right? Components that are public, components that are private cloud, components that will be inside the country, or in some cases also for certain organizations, even on premise. So have you seen this more hybrid concept emerge also in Greece and in the region over the last couple of months so far? What are your thoughts on this?
And in which direction this is going, right? So what a gentleman just described, in order to succeed, we need quality of data in the first place, okay, and good classification. What we're usually saying, garbage in, garbage out, right? Okay. Second thing is that size matters in this case when you're talking about AI, sovereign AI, and if you would like to have, if you want to have to achieve our goals, okay, size matters. So we need to invest in compute power. We need to invest in state-of-the-art storage systems, okay? We need to have the data on the secure place stored, okay? And then we build around the networking, the security system, stuff like that. On the other side, if you look like this, which is very interesting fact, not really related to your question, is how AI, sovereign AI, is driving economies. Okay, so from real estate, we're starting from real estate, okay, construction companies to build the sites, we see everywhere around Europe, United States, Canada, everywhere, okay, and everything which is linked to it, to electricity, to water, to many different industries. So it's really driving, okay, the economy, which is very good, okay, and very positive sign for the and Greek and for European economy of tomorrow. Now, when we are talking about, I already gave the answer, it's quite straightforward. Okay, it's instead of having hybrid in this model when talking about sovereign AI, preferred model is definitely on-premise. Why? Because of one simple reason, you have full control of your hardware, of your software, of your data. Okay, it's within the jurisdiction. Okay, where you're operating. Okay, and you have your hands on top of everything. Okay, and you're deciding in which direction, driving which direction this is going. It's very much important, a part of the security, having the proper control, and then we look what is beyond, and we further continue building. This is driving economy in different direction, okay, in a secure way. So we're not talking only about IT security or cyber security in this way. It's about providing to the local nation, to Greek nation, the European Union nations, okay, secure tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And looking at the clock, it seems that we will be wrapping up very shortly, and I think it's closing a great day today, a focus on Gen AI. Maybe final question here to ask you, what should the audience expect, let's say, 2 to 3 years from now? If we had we don't have one, but if we had a crystal ball, right, and you have to give your own perspective on that, and reflecting on this whole day of discussing innovation, where should we put our sights on over the next maybe 2 years?
I think the real question to ask is, are we using, and by we I mean everyone in the room or everyone who attended this conference, are we using to its full potential the existing technology that is available in Gen AI? And the answer is definitely no. So it's good to hear from time to time examples of companies or governments that use bits and pieces of what is available, and they experiment themselves with the existing technology. But I have this feeling that we're overbuilding infrastructure for the scenario that everyone is using generative AI on the planet, which with today's pace will definitely not be the case in 3 years from now. So we have already reached the point where the businesses that focus very much on developing this infrastructure take into account the scenario of all governments, all businesses, all universities, all kinds of sector using their technology the way they have designed it today. Mm-hmm. And my feeling is this is not going to be the case. We are already talking about replacing LLMs with SLMs. We're already talking about this shift of having small language models as a better practice for more targeted purposes, let's say, regardless of the sector and regardless of the needs, which requires less energy, less computational power, and less training for data. And this is the big nightmare for companies like NVIDIA, which is constantly investing in building more GPUs and more GPUs and more infrastructure, stronger infrastructure that takes more energy and so on. So I think the world needs to figure out in 2025 what exactly direction we need to take, which will be viable and would make sense for our economies and for the everyday use of this amazing technology, in order for the final, let's say, the end game of all of this to make sense. Because otherwise, we might end up in a world that our countries will be filled with data centers, and it will be filled with nuclear power plants that fuel the energy needed for these data centers, and not enough people, actual people who are using this technology, if it doesn't make sense.
Fully agree with you, and thank you for this feedback. Maybe as a closing remark from my side, there was a recent research from one of the largest analysts in the world that they said that historically we have seen this kind of investments driven 70% for model training and only 30% for model inference. So a lot of companies try to build their own advanced models, and they spend, well, a lot of dollars and a lot of kilowatts for that. But what they said is that going forward, we should expect that to be reversed. So 70% or if not more will go to inference and a bit less on training. Why? Because we need to monetize, we need to take advantage of all these investments already made and not just build the next iteration of the model. And I think this is not called yet. It's something in progress. We'll see how this evolves over the next couple of months and potentially 1 or 2 years. With that said, I would like to thank you all for your participation today. Thank you so much. And thank you, dear hosts, for organizing this panel. And thank you, audience, for the day. Thank you so much, Pastor.